Welcome back to the Zmar podcast. Today I have Justin Schmick with me, and he's taking the time out of his busy day to go in and talk to us about a little bit about what he's working on, and then we'll get from there. So, Justin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, can you give our audience just a little bit of background on who you are? Obviously, you own an insurance agency, but tell your story, and then that way my audience could actually get to know you a little more.
Sure. Yeah, I do. I own an independent insurance agency. Career-wise, I've done a lot of different stuff. 2008, I became a police officer. So for 8 years, I was a police officer on the road in a small town in Wisconsin here. Decided in 2016 that I wanted to go and venture out and do my own thing. So I became a farmer's insurance agent, a scratch agent in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Did that, ran it for about 5 years, built a pretty good business. But me and farmers, we didn't see eye to eye, and I got an offer to do some marketing for a restoration company, and it was a great offer, so I took it, sold that book back. I did that job for 2 years and realized in that process that I don't like working for people. I'm not good at it. So left there and started the Schmick agency January 1st of this year. So that catches me up on the professional side, and I also tell jokes on the internet.
Yeah, you're a comedian for sure, and there's a whole bunch of people. In fact, when I was looking before our podcast recording, you have like 130,000 followers or something crazy for a small-time insurance agent.
Yeah, it's crazy. It doesn't really translate well into the insurance world, but it's a lot of fun. We're having a good time with it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, how did you start doing what made you start doing some of these videos you were doing that kind of went viral in a lot of ways, at least from my perspective? I know there's probably a lot of work behind the scenes, and the ROI for a long time probably wasn't there, but what got you to that point and then started having fun with it?
Yeah, well, when I was working at the restoration company, there was the girl that worked at the front desk was she's a tough cookie. She's a tough nut to crack. And when I first started, and she's very standoffish. And so one of my buddies had got me a dad joke book for some reason as a congratulations on the new gig. So I had that, and I would read it from my office. I would say, "Hey, Heather," and I would read these jokes off to her, and they're so dumb, and it broke that shell for her. So then it just kind of continued like that. And one day, honestly, I just try recording these and putting them on TikTok and see what happens. And I started doing them, and it was a long road to, just a couple views, couple hundred views or whatever. And then I just had a couple that really hit, and they took off, got a few million views there, and built the following up on there. And during that time, I was also posting them on Facebook, and I really didn't even think twice about Facebook Reels, nothing about it. And then Facebook sent me an email somewhere like 3 or 4 months into it and said, "Hey, you got enough followers? Do you want to be in the creator fund?" And I was like, "What? How do I have enough followers? What do you mean followers?" So I look, and I've got 35,000 followers. I was like, "Holy crap, why did this happen?" And so I just started focusing a little bit more on the Facebook side of things and learned how, that grows, because it grew a lot faster than the TikTok stuff. Yeah, it kept blowing up, and I switched when I left that job to start my own. And my friend Steph works literally 2 blocks from my house. So I wasn't working with Heather anymore, so I needed a new victim. So I just called Steph and I said, "Hey, can I come and tell you dad jokes and see if people like us? We'll give it a shot." And after that, I think I was at 50,000. After that, it just, once I added Steph into the mix, we went to the moon.
Yes, I was gonna say Steph's a good character for it too. She gives you good feedback whether the jokes are good or not, and obviously there's a lot of people that follow her too because she's a good part of that whole video. Now, at a certain point, do you ever run out of these dad jokes or just jokes in general?
No, they just keep coming. There's so many out there. And what's really cool now is people will send me messages and send me different jokes. And so now I like to, if somebody sends me a joke and I'm using it, I like to tag them in it. So
sure
they can get a little credit for sending it my way. The way I like it, I don't write these myself. Some of them I do every once in a while. But the way it is I just like telling these to Steph because she hasn't heard it. So It's just, I don't know, I just like to get a reaction on these jokes. There's an infinite number of dad jokes out there.
It sounds like it because I'm like, he's got one every single day. How does these got to run out? I'm curious though, the one you did recently with the rain, did you make up that one, or was that another dad joke? The one you were in the rain
joke. I had that one on hold in case we got a day where it was raining. It was sitting in the back burner.
Oh, wow. I was like, he had to make this one up because, it was good, but I was like, how coincidental it was raining that day, and then you come up with a raining joke. Yeah, so now Obviously you've been in the insurance agency off and on, and then now you're back full time again. But I'm going to go back further a little bit because you had brought up about at one point in time you were a police officer. You went to school for law enforcement, and so how was it time as a police officer, and how is it different today? I know you're not engaged into it, but like what if you were to go back and give your old self some advice on that, and how was your experience with being a police officer in Wisconsin?
I think if I had to go back and tell my old self any advice, it just don't take everything so seriously. But that would I would give that advice to myself years ago, no matter whatever job I was in.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It was a good job for the age that I was. But once I started having kids and family, the law enforcement job, and I give all law enforcement the utmost respect and credit, because the job hardens you and it makes everything gray. And you can't have any emotion, because as soon as emotion comes into it, you make bad decisions. Because you just can't make those heat of the moment decisions based on emotion of the situation. So you have to turn your emotions off, and that sometimes can bleed over and carry over into regular life. And so that that makes it difficult. But as far as being a police officer in Wisconsin, everybody, for the most part, people still very much respect law enforcement, and it's a good vibe here. They're having a hard time now hiring. That's been a big issue for them.
Sure.
I can remember when I applied for my first part-time job, there was 120 applicants for a part-time job that paid like $10 an hour. There's guys at Walmart saying hello, making more than I was making. And now we just had a hiring process. I'm on the city council in my hometown, and the police department's just on a hiring process, and they're having a hard time getting 5 applicants that are legitimate that they can even bring into interview. So it's getting difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I've heard that about the city of Chicago, because that's where I'm from, and the applications are low, and then the quality of them are going. But as you said, a lot of respect to the police officers that are there and still striving to do it. Obviously, you had found a different path, which, everybody has their own path, but I appreciate you doing the time that's there, and obviously all the people that follow after you. Yeah. And then you jumped into the insurance. Go ahead.
My sense of humor didn't translate well into law enforcement either. People don't think out you're as funny when you put the cop stuff on.
So the people you pull over, right? They try to inject humor when you try to give a ticket. It usually doesn't go over well either. So maybe you would have been the rarity that if we drop the dad joke when you get pulled over. So everybody that's listening to this, maybe drop a dad joke when you get pulled over, and maybe there's a guy like Justin that will just say, you know what, that one's a good one. Yeah. So moving forward to the insurance agency, obviously, you had a stint with a captive franchise, so to speak. Outfit, probably good tools to learn the trade, and people need insurance, right? And so I've heard that story about coming out of that captive organization from many people. They kind of just went to different pastures. It just wasn't a good fit for a lot of brokers, and who knows why. And it's a totally different topic, But what made you come back to the insurance world after doing the digital marketing stint with the restoration company?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't have anything bad to say about farmers either. They did fine. Like it wasn't. Yeah. The captive.
They had their place.
Corporate thing for me was not a fit. But yeah. So when I left, I thought, okay, I did that for a while. Like, it's cool. I really learned it. I got it. Like, there's only been 2 careers so far in my life that I really soaked in all the information, and that was law enforcement and insurance. It just clicks. But I left, and so when we were a restoration company, we're trying to talk to as many insurance agents as possible. So we would host CE classes, every other month, and my job was to make sure everybody was entertained and taken care of, and sit in on all those classes so I could keep up. It worked out because I could keep up my CE. But it was my favorite day. Every single month, it was my favorite day to go in there and sit and talk about insurance and listen to all the other insurance professionals talking about all the stories. And I was engaged the entire time. It wasn't boring. I loved it. And I could just tell that I missed it. I really missed it.
So, so you moved back into it. Obviously, there's a lot of people, not only you're just marketing and stuff like that, but there's a lot of people that still need help, right? They're like you said, there's a lot of great outfits out there, but some people are looking for a good fit. Price is one piece of it, but relationships another, right? And that's where insurance agents really stand out, in that local market or wherever niche that business is in, or that family lifestyle is. And so how has it been for the last 8 months going back on your own?
I mean, I was scared. I was nervous that it wouldn't take off. And when I started scratch with farmers, it was difficult. It was very hard to get going because nobody knew who I was. Nobody had seen me before. I was brand new. And the time I was there, I got involved in the networking and the chambers and the charity events and things of that nature. And I kept that going while I was at the restoration company as well. So I just kept showing up to stuff and being there. And I was very nervous about changing, going from insurance to restoration and coming back to insurance. Everybody's going to be like, well, he's just flipping around everywhere. And it has been that amount of time that I put into the networking and the relationship building has 100% paid off. It's been a great first 8 months. I couldn't ask for anything better. It's at the pace that I can keep up with at this point. I'm just barely at the pace where I can still keep up with it. My wife works for, I don't know if you've heard of EAA. It's an ear show every year.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the Mr. Mom thing while running this agency during the summer. So I've got 3 kids here at home that, I'm just watching over them, making sure they don't die.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
Running this at the same time. So it's been a great pace. I've been busy every single day. It's a really great market right now. In insurance.
For sure. And because there's a lot going on. And so with that in mind, is like, what are you seeing in trends, right? So there's always trends going on, soft markets, hard markets. Some of our audience doesn't understand those, but like, what are you seeing, like with were you going back independent, they're owning your own shop? What have you been seeing for trends as far as even just weather related, insurance company personalities? What are you seeing for trends that people should be listening to?
Some of the biggest things I'm seeing a lot of rate increases on the auto side. I think COVID, I guess this is just my take on it, right? So I don't know exactly.
Rule of Justin.
Numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, a lot of companies gave a lot of discounts and factored a lot of things in with COVID when people were driving a lot less, right? And I don't know that they caught up with all those changes before everybody got back out on the road and got going, because it feels like there's a lot of companies that are taking big rate on the auto side right now. I don't understand why necessarily. That's one of them. I think, and maybe it's just in Wisconsin. Maybe we're just running into each other too much, and they do like beer here, so maybe that's an issue. I don't know, but
you get spotted cow though. I don't.
Oh yeah, we do have spotted cow. I had a couple of those last night actually.
What else you seeing?
Things I'm seeing a lot on the homeowner side. So that's the very interesting thing that came out of COVID and all this inflation is that home insurance, just the dwelling part of home insurance is vastly different. And a lot of people are seeing 20-30% increases in their home insurance premium for good reason. All these companies are doing it to protect their people, but people see the price and that's what it is, But what happened is, so 3 or 4 years ago, to build a 1,500 square foot house, $100 a square foot, $150,000 you got to be covered for, maybe some inflation guard, and you're good to go, right? Well, now it's between $200 and $300 a square foot. So a 1,500 square foot house is now somewhere around the $300,000 range. So these people, most people, I would say 70% of the people that I see when I look at their policies, they're covered at that $100 to $150 a square foot rate. And so if everything comes crumbling down to the ground, you don't have enough insurance. Like, you don't have enough to rebuild. You can't rebuild in this market, right? So I think that's one of the things I try to make sure I talk to people about and make sure that I tell them, well, hey, go look at your policy, see what the number is, multiply your square footage by at least 250 and see if those numbers match up. And if they don't, you need to call somebody and get that re-rated because you're not protected.
And you bring up a great point. Years ago, another insurance agent, when he would meet with a client, and this just goes along with what you were saying, do you want to have a policy just to meet the needs of having insurance, or do you want to have a policy that, assuming you do have a catastrophic loss, that you have everything taken care of, and that'll have a deeper conversation, or do we just get insurance? And he had found that the conversation was completely different. And even those people were fast and saying, hey, let's just get this done. I got another appointment to go to. They actually slowed down a little bit and say, well, what do you mean exactly by that? Right. Because you bring up a good point where it's not about the value of the property, right? It's about what it's going to cost to go in there. There's labor intensive, materials have gone up. COVID, I mean, how much is a 2x4 nowadays compared to even 4 or 5 years ago?
Right.
And the labor costs are going up. And so obviously you're having some success with the insurance agencies. Where do you see the agency going forward? Like, what is Justin's big plans for your insurance agency?
Yeah, I'm bringing on a partner. So I have a new person starting probably in September. So I'm pretty excited about that. Somebody that's coming out of a captive agency. I was working for a captive that's going to come and they wanted to do their own thing, but they came and asked me questions about starting their own thing. And through the conversation, I just said, hey, why go through all those steps? Why go through all that work? I've already done it. I've already done this all. Why don't, instead, then you're working against me. Let's work together. Let's build this business and do it that way. So I've got a new partner coming in, which I'm pretty excited about. So moving forward, I just see some good growth here in the next 5 years for sure.
Yeah. Now, with your insurance agency, are you just staying with personal lines, or are you diversifying over to commercial? Do you do commercial now?
I've got commercial. I've got personal lines and commercial. I've got more commercial policies now than I ever had with my previous book.
Sure.
The new companies that I write for are very, very good on the commercial side of things. So it's been really great, especially being independent. I don't necessarily have a no market, where you're with one captive, that it's okay. It's going to be, office buildings and dentist office and a couple other things, and everything else is a no. I don't have a no now. I'll figure it out. I'll find it. So
sure. Cool. It gives a flexibility. Obviously, there's a time and place for a captive. They have their share in the marketplace. They've been there since the beginning of time. Yep. And then, but in the independent channel, what I've always liked with the people I rub elbows with, I'm an insurance agent too, but I don't do auto, home, and commercial. Leave it up to guys like you that study it, read it, get excited about it, show up in a room and get excited about teaching it. And so those are the people that you need to go to. And so with that on the independent channel, I always call it personality matchmaking, right? So there's a certain risk under certain terms or conditions, because maybe there was a previous fire, maybe there was some other thing, especially with the commercial properties. Now, all of a sudden, certain underwriters don't want to do it. Or I've heard some crazy stories, and you could elaborate a little bit more, where like maybe material of that old building was made in a certain way, certain insurance companies won't touch it. And you guys are in a old town there.
I've had that in my previous insurance life, where it was, there was a fire in 1842, before they had electricity there, and they weren't going to take it because there was this big fire. It's like, well, I mean, there's been advancements in technology since then. I think it's a little bit safer now.
Yes.
But that's it is, and it's not, underwriters have a really tough job. They've got a really tough job, and they get this book that they're supposed to learn from. And there's these checklists that come through that say, hey, if this is happening or if this happened, we can't do it. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the industry, making sure that everybody's on their checks and balances. And at the end of the day, the insurance companies, have to be profitable. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So yeah, having that understanding with the underwriters too helps a whole lot. And to be able to explain, like, I know it's not you. I know that this is what the book says you should be doing. But here, let's think outside the box here a little bit on this one particular.
And obviously that's a reason to go to a guy like Justin, right? To say, hey, I got the relationships, right? I could communicate with them. I know how they communicate. I know their appetite, right? I know their appetite. I know some edges that we could push to if we needed to. But it's really the help benefit. It's a customer service thing, how you could benefit that client, not necessarily for insurance situations that shouldn't be there, but more so like, hey, like you said, so what? There was a fire, 200 years ago. Like what can we do now? There's so much more that's been there, and I'm sure a whole bunch of stuff has been replaced in that building. And so, how is the videos that you create, these dad jokes, have impacted the insurance agency in the last 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to translate that over, right? Because the people, number one, it's global. The 130,000. There's people in Australia and Africa and all kinds of stuff that reach out and say, hey, I love these jokes or whatever. So, I mean, I can only write in Wisconsin, so that doesn't really, do much good there. But I think on the local side, it's been good for recognition. It's pretty much just, I mean, my brand's always in the videos. I make sure it's there and they know who I am. So that way it's been it's way less expensive than paying for a billboard on the highway. But it's pretty much been just the digital billboard for me.
No, and you make a good point, right? It's about the credibility, who you are. People do business who they know, like, and trust. And obviously, even some of the other videos that I briefly saw before our interview today, that, you show a lot of credibility when you talk about serious topics too. So, like, there's a lot there from Justin that comes to the table, and I think that's fantastic. And you always need something in the forefront to give you that credibility. And even though they're dad jokes, right? They know who you are. They obviously, you're working with Steph, right? Steph wouldn't be there if you were a bad guy, essentially. And so you're good people. You're bringing humor, which is what everybody loves. They always like to laugh and whatnot. And so, and then you're doing a little twist with the digital agency. Like you're inviting some other local businesses or just businesses in general to be part of it. Is that right? Like an advertising thing?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can. I'm happy to advertise for anyone. But yeah, the recent thing we're doing is with a fitness company. Steph and I were both talking about wanting to get in good shape, and we've got a couple of local trainers that do a really great job. And we talked to them and said, hey, let's collaborate. Let's see if we can do something together. I need that credit. I need that accountability. So let's do it, and let's be raw about it and keep it out there and make it so everybody can see all of it and see the process.
Hey, sometimes it just starts with connections, right? And that's how I reached out to you, saying, hey, you're doing a great thing. I know you started this agency. Maybe you could use my platform to help promote it a little bit, but I love the videos, and I'm sure everybody else does. And so I definitely appreciate the time, Justin. Maybe in 6 months or a year, we'll have you back on the podcast, give us some updates, what's going on. Maybe this new partnership will breed other things, and maybe you'll be outside of Wisconsin too. That, or I'm just going to go to your house and pick up spotted cow because you can't get in Chicago.
I have some in the fridge. Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So, hey, Justin, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for, let's say, insurance needs or even the TikTok videos, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can call me. It's 920-718-0163. That's the office phone. It's a cell phone. I don't have a landline for my office, so you can call and text that number anytime, and I can answer questions. You can go to schmickagency.com. You can fill out a quote request form that goes right to my email. Doesn't get sold to anybody else. You're not going to get 100 calls from a bunch of different people trying to sell you insurance. It'll just go right to me. Otherwise, they can email me at justin@schmickagency.com.
Yeah, we'll leave some of that information inside the show notes so people can reach out directly, and obviously look up Justin for his daily TikTok videos. They're all over the place. You even put them on LinkedIn, even though it's a professional site. People still need a little laugh for the day. So I appreciate what you're doing there, Justin. Yeah, for sure. Hey, we'll have you back sometime. Thanks for coming.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. That's great. I love talking about insurance. So
yeah, anytime. Absolutely.